Gary, you want to lead us?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You move to the reappointment of Gary Anderson as Planning Commissioner as agendized. Please welcome John. Is there someone here that's Kim, you going to take care of?
That's me. I'm going to administer an oath for Gary. So you can come to the podium. Gary Jane is not here, so you can raise your right hand. And as I read this, just state your name.
Okay.
I,
Gary S. Anderson,
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California.
Can you make smaller bites here? I just ate. I, Gary S. Anderson, do solemnly swear to defend the Constitution
of the
United States
and the Constitution of the State
of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Okay, I just need your signature on the pledge, please. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Welcome back aboard, Gary.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Want a roll call?
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson?
Here.
Commissioner Garman?
Here.
Commissioner Eaton?
Here.
And Commissioner Jensen?
Here.
Okay. Public appearances per California state law. Matters not on the agenda raised by the public will automatically be referred to staff or placed on the next meeting's agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission at this time will be limited to 5 minutes. If there's anything in the audience would like to address the commission about that's not on the agenda, please feel free to do so now. Being that there isn't anybody to do that right now, we'll close that part and move on to the minutes and approval of minutes or after review. Defer motion.
These were really long minutes this time. I read through them. I'll vote to approve.
I'll go along and say they're okay. I second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Jensen, second by Commissioner Richardson. Any discussion? If not, I'll take a motion. I'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, move on to item number 1 on tonight's agenda, design review. That's an application by Stephen Dietrich for a design review permit to construct a new trash enclosure at the rear of the building located at 74 to 76 South Washington Street in a C commercial zone. Assessor parcel number 001-09407.
Thank you, sir. So before you tonight is exactly what the agenda item says. Mr. Dietrich has a property there on South Washington Street, and the rear of the property currently has a parking area with dumpsters in it. There's a picture on page 2 of the existing condition. Because of the slope of the property, you can see there's some little concrete barriers that he's got trying to keep the dumpsters from rolling out of the parking area on a continual basis because of the slope. And so his request tonight is to put a wood enclosure around those dumpsters in that location in order to shield it from the public. While this isn't something that can be seen from Washington Street, you can see it when you drive by the rear of the property. And even though it's set in between two other buildings, it's still well within the public view. So staff took a look at it. The examples on page 3 that have been given is of the current enclosure over at the orchards. It's basically a wood fence look to it, and it would be just high enough to hide the dumpsters from public view. And what the public would see would basically be a wood fence area. We did send this out for advisory review. The comments were limited to TUD and the fire department. TUD's comments basically were just make sure that they notify TUD before any construction so that if there's anything underground, they can locate that so we're not accidentally hitting a water or sewer line over there. And the fire department just noted the distance requirements that the site plan as drawn had already taken into account with the 5.5 feet from the overhang of the roof. Other than that, the only issue that needs to be addressed during construction and layout when they're actually looking at it with the street is that the gates to the enclosure need to be out of the public street when they're open, so that's not going to be a traffic problem. And those have been included in the conditions of approval, which are on page 5. They're listed as conditions 2, 3, and 4. Other than that, staff thinks that the project before you is an improvement from the existing conditions, and we do recommend approval of it. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here to
One question. If he moves this back far enough to open the gate, does he encroach on the 5.5 feet that he's supposed to have from the overhang of the roof?
Yeah, it's not going to be a moving it back. It's going to be a
Cutting it
short
down?
Yeah, it's going to be shortening it up.
So there were 2 dumpsters in there right now. Do they fit in front of each other? One has to come out to get to the other one?
Right. So, and basically the size of the gate and things, that's why it's going to be more of a in the field when it's being constructed to look at how far back and what the actual dumpster sizes are and things and how that will work. But there's a solution to it. It's just a matter of making sure it's not going to impede into that public right of way too far. And then the only other thing, now that I say that I forgot to mention was number 4, the condition of approval is that there'll be some kind of concrete buffer around the bottom or a railing put up within the fencing itself. Either solution would be adequate to staff, and it's just a protection of the wood slats so that when the guys who are changing the dumpster and emptying it, when they put it back in there, if they're a little careless, it's not going to rip off the wood slats. So it's more of a protective measure to make sure that the dumpsters are guided back into the enclosure properly.
Any other questions of staff? Gentlemen?
Yeah, does the design review include Green Street too for historical?
Yes, it's to the center of Green Street.
One note, I don't know if it's right now appropriate, but I noticed that they're talking about the fire department approving or being aware of where the eaves are, and I noticed that in the final general discussion that's not mentioned. Was that a mistake, or was that? It does not say anything about the eaves and the fire department's requirement in the general.
Oh, in the conditions of approval?
Yeah.
They weren't necessary as an additional condition because the site layout as shown met the requirements. So
Okay.
fire was more stating what the requirements were, and those requirements were already being
Okay,
met.
so it didn't have to be mentioned then. Okay, thank you.
I have to restate the fire code.
I have one more question. Can I ask the owner a question? Hi.
So these two dumpsters, when they're stacked to get in front of each other, does that give you enough room?
They're currently stacked side by side, and that would
Is that what you want them to do,
Yeah.
side by side?
Just because then the dumpsters are at the biggest one is 6 feet in length, so they can make the enclosure about 8 feet to accommodate the right of way.
And that's no problem to shorten it up for the doors. Cool. All right.
I take it you're Mr. Dietrich?
I am. Sorry.
As a procedural thing, I usually get the applicant up here before I open a public hearing, right?
This is not a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's
it's
just a-
design review.
It's design review, it's only a public meeting.
But
you're welcome
if
to
it was a
come.
public hearing, I would get the applicant.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks. I just want to do some housekeeping here. I got a question for you. All that parking area that's on the site plan here, and as I physically drove by it and I looked at that all belongs to your building and business. Why wouldn't you want to slide this over to the side to enable for more parking?
As you can see by the picture, the ground is not very flat, and there was talk of moving it over, and it used to be located against the building with the wood pulling apart building,
Right.
And trash was just getting stacked behind it and into the alley between the two buildings. And this is the flattest part of the parking lot, which makes it easier for waste management to roll out the.
Okay, all right. It just seemed to me that you lost a little parking here in order to put it in the center of the whole thing, but it probably doesn't make much difference.
It's only the 3 spots are for the businesses within the building.
I tell you what, Paul's comments about the concrete curbing, I have personal experience with a lot of dumpsters, and I have wooden fence enclosures in one of my buildings, and I got to tell you, dumpsters and the day-to-day operation of garbage disposal, it's hard on those wooden fence enclosures. So having a bumper or a curb there to keep those from rolling in, it will preserve your structure for a long
Yeah,
time.
I thought that was a very nice conclusion. And actually what Paula described is the current concrete barrier on one side. It was actually all the way around and got knocked apart.
Yeah, it'll just dismantle the thing. It'll take no time at all for it to get damaged. So it's a good idea to really be on that.
I really like that conclusion.
If I can jump in, part of the discussion of the placement of the dumpsters, fire code would not allow you to put it immediately adjacent to another building.
So the city or just general?
Fire code,
Really?
That'd be state county.
state fire code.
Mine are all against the buildings.
That's why there's the 5.5
Should
foot.
have said that over there.
And my name's Joe Dokes. I'm a resident. All right. Any other questions of the applicant? If there's anything else you want to volunteer to us?
It's the wood that is the problem, the wooden slats, the wooden enclosure, or they would want a different type of material that can be up against the building.
But a dumpster could be against the building?
No, the enclosure area, but it had to be a different material.
Interesting.
Just like many other things in town that are existing conditions, because we have an older community and things have been done for a long time and codes have changed through the years. Not everything is up to code, but certainly when we bring something before you now, we have to make sure it meets code. So we'll just kind of leave that at that.
All right. Any other comments or discussions? I'd like to make a motion.
I make a motion to approve as drafted, the dumpster enclosure.
One second.
Motion by Commissioner Eaton, second by Commissioner Richardson for the approval of the project with the 6 conditions or recommendations. All right. Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you very much. All right. Community Development Director's report.
Keep it short tonight. I was at the fair all week with boys last week, so I'm just going to catch up real quick. The ARCO project has been delayed, as I'm sure you guys have assumed, because it hasn't come before you. So It possibly will, maybe in September, it might be after that, more than likely it would be later. But it does look at this point, you will have a September meeting. At this point, it doesn't look like we'll be having an August meeting, but we will let you know as soon as we know for sure. Projects, just a couple projects that are going on. As you know, we've got Walmart going to town. We also have the outpatient pavilion. So the tenant improvement shell has been approved, but they're still working on their plans for the interior of the building for plan approval, and that hasn't been completed yet, but it should be not for too long. So we've been busy even on both planning and building. We've got a lot of people interested in talking about projects and stuff, so the economy definitely is moving. The hardest part in the city is everything that's easy to develop has already been developed, so everything, most of the projects that are that we're working through are pretty difficult because of the topography in the area. So, but there has been a lot of interest. We've been very busy. We've got a big grant that we're getting ready to put in also. I'm working on to bring back our home buyers program, and also to look at another fire flow project, water and sewer project in a couple areas in the city. So I'll have that done by the end of the week, and that'll go to the council for approval on Monday. So anyway, that's kind of, we've been really busy. So the phones have been ringing off the hook. So that's kind of where we are on anything, unless you guys have any questions. And John's been busy over in his area too.
Oh, yeah.
He had a simple, complicated project.
Very right.
Simple problem.
Yeah. It should be easy.
I did the unbelievable.
Yeah. But yeah, so again, we've been busy. So, and we've got some transactions where other people are buying property. So it'll be interesting to old projects. So it'll be interested to see how they morph and change.
Question I have: we used to get together every fall, the Planning Commission and the City Council, and have like a sabbatical day, but we'd all come together and talk about all the stuff going down, and that evaporated. Is there any chance of bringing that back? I talked to Connie a little bit about some things that I've run into, and just in general, and she thought it was a good idea. Of course, someone has to initiate it, but it seemed to be productive because we'd all sit in there and we kind of got to know each other. We got a chance to talk about things that were going to happen. Is that just something I'd like to interject and maybe to think about that?
That was the council retreat.
Yeah.
That's the format the council retreat used to be under. The new city council, or the city council and Tim have morphed that into a different type of a process now, or what they...
That's why it wasn't...
Yeah.
Really.
So that's why they don't do it that way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They do it... And it can take different versions, but since Tim's been here in the city council, the current city council, previous city council, I should say, they took it. They had a different approach on that. They didn't do the meeting the same, or the retreat like they used to. It's hard to say how it'll be this year. Connie might be looking at it, but that is the council.
I might go back and talk to Connie because she was thinking about it, just because it was, I thought, a really productive thing.
Right.
A chance to really talk about things and discuss matters in a kind of a relaxed atmosphere, and the input that we used. There were speakers that came in from outside and updated a lot of things that were going on. Anyway.
They don't do the speakers anymore, and it's not a full day anymore.
Yeah.
It's a half day. I think this last year it was a 3/4 day. And basically it was more on setting projects in place on how they wanted to see things move forward on certain projects.
Yeah.
So
That's just
they
a thought.
tend to change the format of it.
What I recall about that is that we used to meet over at the fire department
Yes.
on Stewart.
Firehouse, yeah.
And Firehouse, it was an all-day deal, or at least till 3:30 or so.
Yeah.
And if the planning commission was always invited. There was a city council and other departments in the city, the fire and police. Everybody had some input. It was I thought pretty productive because, like John said, I think it kind of kept us on the same page. But
Yeah,
to
they
piggyback
changed.
on that,
We used to, every department would do a presentation, and that's how they did. And then they would do your update on your Brown Act. You guys would be invited for the Brown Act update.
sure.
And but now the public's invited. They just don't set it up where all the speakers and everybody comes and they don't do the Brown Act training. At least they haven't. Now maybe they will in the future.
But to piggyback on that, after the last city council meeting, when Connie was appointed mayor, she buttonholed me after the meeting, and she said she's looking forward to getting a joint meeting together with the planning commission and the city
Okay,
council.
so there we go.
And the
Yeah.
main focus of that was, I think, trying to stimulate some discussion on how we can invite, keep, and retain downtown businesses. That was at least was the theme that she had mentioned.
Yeah.
So, in the spirit of that, I think that
Maybe it's in the wind then.
Could be.
Okay.
She'll have those discussions with Tim, and then they'll decide how they're gonna, what they're gonna do, and when
Yeah.
they're gonna do it.
And she's enthused, she's the new queen bee, so she
Yeah.
wants to do it right.
She's the third woman.
Third woman.
for the
And we have the
city.
homeless thing, which is out there floating around pretty wild. I've got people up my creek right now, up the on the area coming up Sonora Creek. I hear them down there at night and in the morning. I heard some tonight going up there, and up there on the hill between the road, Lions Ball Mountain, and the creek down there. They just keep moving in. And sooner or later, something's going to happen.
Yeah, you really should call the police
Law
department.
enforcement issue.
You should call the police department, John.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, and let them know, and
It's too bad, but
I know that some of the shopping centers, they're having, yeah. Yeah, and I was down at the fair, and they were wandering up and down by the fair, so yeah, I know it's
sad.
it's a tough situation. So
Well, if anything, we
that's all I
can meet
have.
jointly and get an informational thing going with the
Yeah.
departments.
Could happen. That's great.
All right. I say we adjourn.
Okay.